We are Lilian Lema and myself, Karolyne Piedra. In this video, we are going to present verbs. We will be talking about the 3 analytic tests to know if a word may be a verb, and the allomorphs that we can find in the third person singular, plural, and possessive, and in the past form of the verb. A verb is a part of a speech that in syntax conveys an action, for example, bring, walk, an occurrence, for example, happen, become, or a state of being, for example, be, exist. In many languages, verbs are inflected. It means modified in form to encode tense, aspect, mood, and voice. A verb may also agree with the person, gender, or number of some of its arguments, such as its subjects or objects.
There are 3 analytic tests to know if a word may be a verb. Analytic test 4. A word may be a verb if it can take all the inflections or some of them. For example, S as in plays, ed as in played, ing as in playing, en as in taken. Analytic test 5. A word may be a verb if it actually ends in a verbal derivation affix. For example, ify, for example, magnify, ize or ise, for example, advertise, en, for example, lighten, ate, for example, participate.
Analytic test 6. A word may be a verb if it can be immediately preceded by a word that typically precedes verbs. Those words are auxiliary, for example, have taken, modals, for example, would have, and to. This is to create a non-finite verb, for example, to buy.
Allomorph. An allomorph is the phonetic realization of a morpheme, which manifests its phonological or morphological environments. Allomorphs are the alternative representation of a morpheme. Allomorphs are present in verbs when they change the tense. For example, from present tense to past tense, adding the suffix ed, play to played, or when they are used in the third person singular. For example, play to plays.
Allomorph S. The pronunciation of the S suffix is determined by the preceding sound. It occurs in the third person singular, plural, and possessive. It is pronounced as following sibilants. For example, buses, coaches. It is pronounced following voiceless consonants. For example, stops, lips. It is pronounced z following voiced sounds. For example, lives, bees.
The pronunciation of the past tense ending ed is governed by the preceding sound. It is pronounced of following t or d. For example, needed, hinted. It is pronounced t following voiceless consonants. For example, watched or kissed. And it is pronounced d following voiced sounds and vowels. For example, played, employed.
Importance of verbs and their allomorphs. As future teachers, we consider important to teach verbs and its function, and different analytic tests in order to allow students to determine if a word may be a verb. Also, we consider important to teach allomorphs in order to allow students to achieve a good pronunciation and make their pronunciation understandable.
Activity. The activity is to write a comparison paragraph. The objective of the activity is by the end of the activity, students will have to write a comparison paragraph using properly verbs and their suffixes. The level is between an A2 and B1. The time for this activity is 30 minutes.
Pre-writing. Here we have a discussion among teacher and students. about the difference between being a primary school student and being a high school student. This activity serves to introduce students to the topic of the writing activity. During writing, here the students have to write a comparison paragraph, comparing their lives in the school and their lives nowadays in the high school. This activity serves to develop the writing skill. Now, in the after writing, we have teacher asks students to get in pairs and exchange their writing in order to do a co-evaluation. This activity serves to provide a feedback from student to student. And that will be all. Thank you.